I was also, told to be inspirational. Now, in Judaism, we celebrate yard sites, not birthdays, really. Rabbi dies. We don't celebrate his birthday like George Washington. And I think the reason is, it may say this, by the way, somewhere blatantly, but I just, thought of it myself. But maybe Rashi says it, I don't know. But in any case, until a person dies, you don't know if their life is inspirational or a cautionary tale. The Torah says about Yitzchak, he was a tzaddik because basically he was old and blind. So the Torah felt that they can, say he was a tzaddik. But the reality is that, people, until they're dead, you really don't know if they're cautionary tale or inspirational. But this is not the horse. And the reason I bring it up is because my life is sort of inspirational and a cautionary tale at the same time. And still not sure which one is, it's a work in progress, let's just say. So a little about Charlene and myself. I'm doing most of the talking because,
It's all written down and
right.
We have one pair of glasses.
Exactly. We have one pair of glasses. So I'm doing most of the talking. I'll let her talk a little here and there. But I grew up in Brooklyn, a Haredi rich kid. Hated being told what to do, obviously, as you know. Hated the rules, hated the whole lifestyle. It was really, I had an easy life. My father had money. I was very spoiled. But, on the inside, I was enjoying myself. On the outside, I felt like I was in a, prison camp. And I'll just tell you two quick stories of my childhood. By the way, talking about prison camps, the guy that ran my yeshiva was in Auschwitz himself. And whenever a kid would say, they didn't like the school's camp, he would say, it's much better than the camp I went to. And they'd ask him, what camp was that? He'd say, Auschwitz. That's the kind of humor he had. So in any case, that wasn't the two stories. I better speed up. I only have 15 minutes. Rabbi, you said I have 30 minutes. Shuli said 15. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with Shuli on this one. But I'll tell you two quick stories. One of them, are we on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Usually people interrupt me, so right. Usually people laugh. I'm sorry. So if I just hold up a laugh sign, how about every time I do this?
The thing is, people are muted, yeah, so it's hard to know.
I know. I'm doing this with one hand tied behind my back.
Shuli's in charge of the laughing. That's Shuli's role.
Yes. Okay. When I was the first day of first grade in Borough Park, Brooklyn, New York, also known as the epicenter of the Wuhan virus in America, the first day of first grade, I gathered up all the boys on the block, and they gave me their books, and we did a giant book burning in the sort of near my parents' house. They didn't own it; they were renters at the time. And, we had a giant bonfire. And I got to tell you, till today, this goes back over 40 years ago, I see that fire, I hear it crackling, I feel it in my soul, I see that fire. It's really, when I realized, holy crap, this fire is way bigger than I could control. I'll never forget that feeling of looking at that fire. And the next thing I know, the fire department's there, 4 fire trucks. Someone ratted me out, and my mother's this little short woman, 5'3". I don't know what that is in centimeters, and there was this giant Irish fireman. He was like 6'4", real guy. I remember as a 7-year-old thinking, what a guy. He was like out of the movies, giant, and then he's wearing this fire. Talking too much, right, about this? Okay, I'll speed it along. In any case, the fireman pulls me aside and he says, son, let me teach you how to make a fire. and he's pulling me in the backyard to show me how to make a fire away from the house. And my mother starts screaming at him, "What's wrong with you teaching him how to make fires? Tell him not to make a fire." And at the time, I thought my mother was right, because at the time, I thought my mother was right. But since then, I realized my mother was wrong basically about everything. In any case, I realized later on in life that the guy took one look at me and realized this was not going to be the last fire I was making. And, he knew his customers. This guy, I wasn't the first 7-year-old pyromaniac in Brooklyn, I'm sure. So that was story number one. Story number two is the same time period in the bungalow colony. If anyone watched Dirty Dancing, that did not happen in our bungalow colony, but in the same general geographic region, the Catskills, and all the Brooklyn Jews used to go up there for the summer. And my parents had a bungalow, and they tortured me by sending me to day camp and learning groups, and it was just hell on earth. You're sitting there as a 7-year-old, staring at a swimming pool, and they're like teaching you Kametz Aleph at 7 years old. It was like torture, basically. They left the whip in Brooklyn, though. In any case, I left day camp and I left learning groups, and I used to go with this boy, Shlomi Ackerman, and we would go collecting salamanders and frogs and snakes. It was paradise for us. We would spend the whole summer in the woods and at the river, the Neversink River. It was just absolute paradise. My best times before meeting Charlene. In any case, we had this bird cage that Eddie the handyman gave us, and we used to go hunting for birds. We actually caught quite a few birds. I'll tell you the stories, but here's one particular story. We saw this hummingbird, a tiny little hummingbird, fly into the hole, a knot in a bungalow, like a little hole, and we went and grabbed the bird cage. Actually, I don't remember which of us grabbed the bird cage and which of us watched that the bird wouldn't leave the hole, but we knew that the hummingbird didn't leave the hole. And we grabbed the bird cage, put it up against the wall of the bungalow with the door of the bird cage open, and held it there, what seemed to me like 4 days. But, I was 7 years, but we held it up like that, completely quiet, the two of us, and the hummingbird actually flew out of the hole into the cage. We pulled it away from the wall, and the door fell down, and we caught the hummingbird. Now, this hummingbird is a wild animal, and he was, first he hit the side of the wall, and he fell down, and he was in shock. When he woke up, he's freaked out, and I also feel his heart was beating faster and faster and faster. And I was pushing, and he was like sticking his head out of the cage. These bird cages have these little bars, and he was able to get his head out. That's how small he was. And he was choking to death on the bars. And I was hitting him on his head. Every time he stuck his head out of the bars, I would hit his head, pushing him back in. And he was getting more and more frantic. And I didn't want to kill the bird. I loved animals. So eventually I looked at Shlomi. I said, "We got to let him go." And we opened the cage door, and he flew away, and that was it with that hummingbird. But the reason I tell you these stories is because I felt like the hummingbird, and good, looking back, good I didn't kill that hummingbird, because I think that would have, they would have won, these yeshiva people that were, that were my enemy. So that was my childhood. In any case, life was a duty. There was nothing enjoyable about it on the outside. I had a rich inner life, but it was so bad that I actually married my first wife, not Charlene, who I love greatly. But the first one was, like night and dark. First God creates darkness. So the princess of darkness was, also whatever. She had multiple. She's known by many names throughout history, but to me, well, I won't tell you her name to me, but in any case, I detested her. I detested her the day I married her, and I walked down the aisle anyway because I was a bit of a lunatic, and that was my life. Now talking about Charlene, because we pick up in Jersey, where my life was a shambles when I met Charlene. But before then, would you like me to tell them about your life? Okay. So Charlene grew up in Florida. It'll be a little less colorful, not because she doesn't have great stories, but just because, you know, I wasn't there. So she grew up in Florida, into horses. She rode horses since she was a little kid. Athletics, cheerleading. She was a real Southern girl, tomboy type of girl. And from what I understand, had an idyllic childhood. Well,
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You're putting your arm, like, what do you hold?
No, go ahead. I
Okay.
won't touch you.
No, please, touch away.
Go ahead.
So in any case,
Shalom, we're getting support to let's hear Charlene.
Getting what?
We're getting support to let's hear Charlene.
Okay.
Okay, so my father is an immigrant from Colombia. My mother is a descendant of settlers from the 1600s in New York, up in there. And so I have a very different kind of influence growing up. So I have the immigrants, and I have the longtime American, and a lot of history in between that shaped my life. We grew up simple, like, we did have horses, but not like, like they have in Britain. We had what they called like cracker ponies, and they were out in the fields. We would ride, and I was raised Catholic. I didn't know that my father's mother was born Jewish. We found out when my uncle, my father's brother, became Baal Tshuva, and that was around the time that I was finished with my second marriage, and I put some distance between me and my ex, and I moved
You were
to
married
New York.
twice before we met?
Yeah, we met.
How could you tell me this in front of all these people? Okay.
And we met in mortgages. We were both in mortgages. I was a banker, he was a broker, and he was genuine. That's what I liked about him. He was not in a good place. He didn't fluff himself up, and he was really human, and just humble. And I liked that. And so we started dating. And the next thing we knew, we were in love, and we decided to get married. And we got married. And then it was after that I actually decided to convert, because then we decided we were going to have children. We wanted to have a family, and it was important to be very supportive of religion for them. And so we chose Judaism.
Judaism chose me, actually, but
I did.
yeah.
I did. It was tough because we had to separate during that time. So I had to live in Manhattan and go into Brooklyn every day from 8 to 5 for school. I was in school, yeshiva, and a place called Machon Chana. Really nice place.
Chabad
Really,
in
yeah.
Crown Heights.
Really good people. The best people. And I was there for about a year?
Something like that.
Like a year and a half, and then after the conversion, we got married and we had our children. And he's been, most of that is just I've been a housewife and a mom, and my stories are like all of ours about, with raising kids and stuff. His stories are interesting because, he had to support us, and his changes through the different businesses that he did and what he discovered about himself. And a lot of growth, and witnessed his life, and he's witnessed mine, and it makes me feel very fulfilled. And we support each other, and he's going to tell you the rest of the stories.
Yeah.
I've been doing the Kiddush with him.
I'll try to,
and
I'll try to speed it up. Shuli, I only need another 20 minutes. Does that work? I'll bring it down really
No
quickly.
problem. I think we're enjoying your story, so I'm prepared to give you another 10, 20 minutes.
Really? 10 or 20?
Yes.
Okay.
As long as you split it with Charlene.
Now we want to hear.
I could tell you stories that'll raise this to 2 hours. You'll go up to 2 hours, I guarantee it. But
Okay,
no,
yeah.
I'm not going to do that to you.
Now
You know,
we want to hear the continuation, and then at some point we do want to hear about the horse.
Okay.
About what?
Yes.
That's the dog, the horse.
Horses.
Okay.
The horses.
So, yeah. So during this time, you know, when we got married and then the conversion, and after that, I was in the real estate business in Newark, New Jersey. Very, very corrupt. You know, the place was corrupt. The people were dirty. The business was dirty. It was just a disgusting.
Cory Booker was that. You know,
Yeah.
are you all familiar with the senator, Cory Booker now?
Yeah,
No?
Cory Booker was on my payroll.
He was running for president.
Frankly, he sold himself cheap.
Criminal. The guy was
Yeah.
dirty. And I'm
Whatever.
so glad that he didn't make it.
But a lot of people in Newark were on the payroll. You couldn't do business in Newark, New Jersey without people being on the payroll, and I was good at that. One year I bought the secretary of the building department a full-length silver fox coat for Christmas because that's what she asked for, and all she was a secretary. But you know, sometimes secretaries are very important. And she was the shepherd of my building permit. So,
You're inside man.
no, I had a lot of inside men. She was the
In
shepherd.
that department.
Right. She would take the stuff around. So she got whatever she wanted. And in any case, it was a wild time. I got robbed at gunpoint. I had a gun right over here. I still feel it in the back of my head every day. And nothing stopped me. I was just, you know, so stubborn in the way I was that even the gun to my head really didn't change who I was. Although it did convince me to get rid of my disgusting ex-partner, because while I was lying there on the ground with the gun to my head, I knew with certainty that if I died, this really bad dude was going to steal everything from Charlene and the kids. I had no doubt at all. And as soon as I, got out of that situation, I split up with him because, you know, it was untenable at that point. But that was how Newark went. And then it crashed in 2008.
How did you get out of that situation?
With the
With
gun?
the gun?
Yes.
So
They didn't
you
have
want to
any
hear the whole
bullets.
story?
They didn't have any
That's
bullets.
not true.
They didn't have any. You'd
So,
be dead because they killed
right.
the guy.
so
They
what
killed
happened?
the guy.
So yeah, people were getting killed, getting carjacked in Newark at the time. But
Yeah.
it was one of my paralegal friends, a black woman that lived in Newark. When I told her the story, she said, "You know why they didn't shoot you? Because you didn't have bullets." And the reason she said that is because when the guy came up to me, I was in a dead end looking at property. You want to know how crazy I am? I actually bought the property I was looking at when I was robbed.
I think that's
That's crazy.
But
But
what you
I
said
was
was-
looking at a property. Two people came over with guns. One held it down 10 feet away. The other guy put it right here, and he said, "Get on the ground." And I was on the phone with my architect looking at a property, and he says, "Drop the phone." So I dropped the phone in the mud, and he says, "Get on the ground." I said these words to him. I said, "Dude, I have 4 kids." At the time, Ari wasn't born yet. I was like, "Dude," I don't know if I said dude. I probably didn't say dude. I said,
And I have 4.
I think I did say dude, actually. I said, "Dude, I have 4 kids." And he said, "Shut up." And I shut up because of that. But Jackie Black, my paralegal friend, a woman that lived in Newark, they used to call her Jackie Blackie. She said, "Saul," because that's how they knew me back then. She goes, "Saul, the fact that you said that to him and he didn't shoot you, he definitely didn't have bullets." I was like, "Why?" She goes, "Because he doesn't have a father. The fact that the thing that you care about when he's about to shoot you is that you care about your kids, that's not going to bring up empathy from him. That's going to bring up hatred. So maybe he didn't have bullets." But at the time, I didn't know that. And I was telling myself that, you know, he's probably not going to shoot me because he was wearing one of those do-rags that black guys wear in the head, sort of like the opposite of what I'm wearing. And he had it on his face. Actually, the way we wear the corona mask now, the do-rag. So he was the first guy worried about corona, or he didn't want me to see his face. And at the time when I got on the ground, I said, "You know what? If he wanted to shoot me, he wouldn't cover his face." So that's what I was telling myself to stay alive. But he eventually took my wallet, he took my car. I could tell you how all that went out, but you know, it's going to go a little bit longer. But it was a wild story. I did break my hand over here the next day punching that ex-partner of mine. I did not punch him. I was about to break his nose, and at the last second, I turned and hit the wall and broke my hand instead. And, you know, no, he didn't pull back. But that's, you know, I remember this story every time it rains. Yeah, it was rough, but it didn't change me. But the crash, the real estate crash, also didn't change me. But what did change me is the real estate crash.
You think that would change somebody?
Right, you'd think the real estate crash would change me. I went from being the king of Newark to having no money for milk and no money for gas. I had a BMW 750, and I couldn't fill it up with gas. And it was repossessed in front of my mother-in-law. That's how far I fell. It was the most humiliating moment of my life to see my mother-in-law on a Motzei Shabbos watching the tow truck pull my BMW 750 out of the driveway and saying, Shalom, they're taking your car. It was humiliating as humiliating gets. And yeah.
And then she's like telling me,
yeah.
You need to leave him.
Yeah, so that's how it got. But that wasn't enough. But as Ron Popeil says with the Popeil oven, but there's more. But wait, there's more. So in any case, soon after this, I was very depressed. It was a miserable time. And Shuli, I'm going to tell the Kiddush story very, very quickly. The Kiddush story, 2 minutes version. I made a few people miss. I made 9 people miss Kabbalat Shabbat with a minyan. They invited me to join a backyard minyan in Muncie. That I was the 10th person. What?
Go ahead.
And I was late, and they missed, and I felt terribly guilty. And at that time, I was running the middle of davening Kiddush Club in this shul. Right, Charlene had nothing to do with it, and thank God our wonderful shul doesn't know from such terrible things. But at the time I was running the middle of davening Kiddush Club, and let me tell you, it was the best middle of davening Kiddush Club in New York. We had sushi, we had chalent, we had everything you could imagine, and I used to promote it. And I was like the Darth Vader of the shul. And then after this Kabbalat Shabbat thing, I decided to kill this middle of davening Kiddush Club. So and I tried really hard, and I promised God I would do it, and I failed. And I was very desperate because I don't like to fail, and I don't think God likes failures. It's a pet theory of mine. And this guy Jordan, who was the one that invited me to the Kabbalat Shabbat, he was a marketing guy, and I was like, Jordan, I don't know what to do. So he says, start an after davening Kiddush. There are other people, and use those people to start your new Kiddush. And over time, the middle davening Kiddush will play itself out. So that's what I did. I started an after davening Kiddush. This was in 2010. And over the next few years, it was like a washing machine for me. My outside was never matching my inside. On the inside, I was always a good guy. But on the outside, I was corrupt. And this after davening Kiddush, focusing on the positive and focusing on Shabbos every week, really changed my actions and focused me on focusing my actions in a more positive way. And it was many years. And I even I didn't go back into the real estate business after the crash. I went into the solar business and called it American Clean Energy. It was clean. At that point, I went through my clean phase of 6 years. I made quite a bit of money in solar, if anyone, is interested. But that was my clean phase where I really cleaned out all this, dirt from the real estate business and what was there before. And the Kiddush was sort of the impetus for this. And it went on for many years. By 2016, they actually built a new shul because of us. Our shul had grown double. And Rabbi, just so you know, you give me a kitchen, I guarantee you double the size shul within 3 years.
We're working on it.
Right. And you could take that to the bank. Actually, you probably can't take that to the bank. With the donators in our shul, I don't think, you'll be able to take that to the bank even with double the people. But at least you'll have people. more people. Not that we don't have people, more people, double the people. So in any case, by 2016, they had a new shul that was built, and we had a giant kiddush. Every week, Charlene and her friends, she made some great friends. They made a wedding, basically, every single week. Charlene was in charge. She shopped for it. She cooked for it. They set up. It was a beautiful, beautiful kiddush for many years. Hundreds of people every week, and it really changed our life. Right when they built the new building, the richest guy in the shul that gave the most money, he decided he wanted to invite. He made a wedding, an ofruf, and he made a kiddush for an ofruf. He wanted to invite only half the shul. Only his people. Select people. This was after 6 years of me making a kiddush for everybody in the shul. And I was really, really upset about this, like feeling like he was trying to destroy, what we built. And he was trying to destroy what we built. That's exactly what he was trying to do. And I told the rabbi that, I'm going to make a civil war in the shul. And then this guy that I was learning Kabbalah with basically told me that if you fight this guy, you're going to lose everything. The snake will have caught you, the snake being the ego. But, in Kabbalah, they talk about the ego being the snake. So he said, the snake will get you if you fight this guy. I was like, yeah, but he's so evil and I'm so righteous. And he's like, dude, that's the snake talking. I was like, yes, but you don't understand what he's doing to the shul. It's the snake. So I walked away from the fight and did not fight with him. It happened just the way he wanted it. And it was a disaster for the shul.
His kiddush went off like he wanted it to,
right.
But it was a disaster.
It was a disaster for the shul because his caterer clogged up the shul plumbing pipes with all the fat from the steaks that he had Friday night dinner. And the shul, right, that nobody was invited to this. And he got tickets from the town because he had a refrigerated truck overnight. It was a big balagan. The whole shul was upset at him, and it was a real disaster for him. But he got what he wanted. And frankly, I got what I wanted because through this, right, I called the plumber to help me clean the pipes out. It was right before Shabbos. The next week, I was back to making my kiddush the next week, and we couldn't make a kiddush because they clogged up the pipes in the kitchen. The sink didn't work. And this is 2 hours before Shabbos, and I'm like frantic how to figure out how to get this fat out. So I called this plumber friend of mine, who was a very holy guy, and I said, you got to help me with the pipes. And he goes, it's 2 hours before Shabbos. And I said, holy man, you forget your father works for me. His father was my assistant. So be holy and come here and help me. And he came and helped me, and we got rid of the fat. And guess what? Within 6 months, he made Aliyah, and within 9 months or 10 months, I made Aliyah. The only two people from that community to make Aliyah that year. So
nobody had planned to make
Aliyah.
There were no plans.
Neither
at
of
that
us
time
had planned
for Aliyah,
right.
neither.
Right.
And then within, like you said, they made their plans. I think we actually left within weeks of each other, or like a few.
No,
weeks
they left a few months before.
A month? Okay.
Yeah, a few months.
It seemed like we were already on our path to go once they left.
Right.
And
right.
So these two guys that were cleaning this out got such a gift.
Right.
Such a gift to be able to come.
And the truth is, if you think about it, every one of us, most of us on the call, a lot of us on the call made Aliyah. And, you really have to rip yourself out you're uprooting yourself from your milieu and from where you are. And this episode really uprooted me from that community. It was like I had pulled myself out of it. I felt like I rose out of it. And I looked at that point, I had distance from it. It was like he didn't bother me that much anymore, that guy. The whole story, I beat it, basically. And I feel that's how we really got to Israel. So then since coming here, I started a high-tech company, tell you very quickly, an automated grocery. We have automated grocery stores and apartment complexes that we're building. We have some customers in Israel, Supersol, Asherad, Wix. I'll show you quickly in one picture. Can you see that?
Yeah.
That's what we do. We build. We're building automated convenience stores for for apartment complexes. That's in a nutshell my business. Charlene made Aliyah with her horse, Kinor, and is training in Batra, which that's actually why we moved to Renana, because the only trainer in Israel that's,
Yeah,
capable.
when people come, they call what they call the equestrian,
Right.
the International Equestrian Federation, and they would try to find, a trainer here. Not very many. It's not like you get a lot. We get like maybe 2 a year, and then sometimes they stay, sometimes they leave. Like some of them were from, what do you call it, ambassadors' wives and stuff, and they come with their horses and they and
Okay, so in any case.
So we found out about this guy. We found out about this trainer. We moved him here. But as far as the horses go, I've been riding since I was a kid. Undisciplined, because we were just kids, riding horses. It was long ago. And then my sister and I became more into competing. And then we worked at a dinner theater called Arabian Nights, where we would do trick riding and bareback riding and all kinds of jumping with all kinds of things that they would have. It was a dinner theater in Orlando. And it doesn't exist anymore. I think like 7 years ago it closed. And from there, I started competing nationally, not internationally, but nationally. And I would go up and down the East Coast because these were the zones, and I would get my scores and my points, and it was show jumping. And then I moved to New York after I got divorced. And when I was there, was it after I met you, though? It was after I met you. There was a very bad accident in...
No, it was before you met me.
Yeah, it was before? Okay.
Yeah.
There was a bad accident where a horse that I was training reared up and flipped over backwards. She jumped up so hard, and when she pulled the tie down loose, you know how you kind of like, you're pulling something and then you just go? So she flipped over, her legs went up in the air, and she flipped on her back. And I got crushed, and I had a mild traumatic brain injury. I had vestibular problems and cognitive issues, and I was in rehab at a place called Kessler.
The same place Christopher Reeve went.
Yeah, but he was out by then. Yeah. But it was the same place that he's been in, and they'd seen a lot of it. So I was in rehab for a long time, like 3.5 years. And then I started getting back into horses, but I was I had my kids by then, and I was a bit frightened about jumping anymore because it's so dangerous. As a matter of fact, the Maccabi, the girl who won the Maccabi championship, not this last time, but the time before, she died in New York when my trainer was at a show jumping event and saw it. Also, she passed away. She was killed in the practice ring, thrown from her horse, coming up to a jump. So this is the kind of thing. I was like, no, I got a family, so I need something that's not so dangerous. And I started writing dressage. And I started writing it just before we left, about a year before we left. And we were doing very, very well. And so we brought the horse here. There are no international horse shows here. So, plus it was like a year almost before I got to see him once we moved here. Almost a year, like 8 months, 9 months, something like that. And we started competing here. We're not doing too well, doing okay. And he's older now. He's 21, so he's not going to.
Often, Charlene, do you go there and ride?
Yeah, I ride. I go on Sunday to lunch him, and which is work him, and then I ride him every day except Friday. Usually I stopped riding because of the kiddush, but I'm still not riding on Fridays. I donated part of the use of my horse to. They have the Paralympics have para dressage. It's for handicapped people. And so there's a young, well, he's younger than me. There's a rider who's been to the Olympics and the Paralympics. It's not the same as like Special Olympics or whatever. It's like when you see the guys running, but they have those metal legs and they run even faster than the other guys. But it's along that level, except for there's certain tack and help that they have to try to level the field, but they don't really put them up against, they don't at all put them up against abled riders. So they're disabled riders, and this one disabled rider was just in Europe, but it didn't work out for him there. So he comes and he rides my horse once a week on Friday. And I don't want to take that from him, so I let him continue to ride him on Fridays. On Shabbat, he has off. The horse is off on Shabbat. Every horse has the day off. And that's, yeah, I ride every day in the heat. That's why I'm getting so dark.
Yeah. I'll try to wrap it up. I had a little to wrap this up with that pasuk Evan Masu Abonim and turn it into a little vart. So I'll try to say that very, very quickly. When we started the Kiddush here, for me, I've said this a few times, like you, Rabbi, I believe that, for the Messianic process, it's each of us. There may be one, big Messiah, but basically in every one of our own worlds, our own life, we need to get to that redemption ourselves and go through that process. And to me, that's the Messianic consciousness, let's say, for my world is, walking in God's ways, making a kingdom of God on earth means in my own world that God is the king in my world. Most people, I don't know most people, but most non-Messianic type people, they sort of live according to other people's rules. And, that's not how it would work in a Messianic process. There are rules, they're God's rules, the prophets talk about them, and we need to be able to institute, we need that our world works according to that mechanism rather than according to some rules that have been, created by people that want to just control us for whatever, reason it is. Money or power or sex, that's it. The big three. In any case, so to me, the temple was a place where they slaughtered animals, they prepared food for people. People went to eat, invite others to eat, to basically celebrate with God in an atmosphere of brotherhood and generosity. And to me, this was a way of sort of connecting to that. And before we had a temple, this is, my temple. This is how I live with the temple in my world, by having a Kiddush and preparing something that everyone enjoys, and that's sort of bringing my world into, the Messianic process. And, to paraphrase the moon landing, maybe this is a small step to redemption for mankind, but it's a giant step for, redemption for this particular man. And that's really the point of that. So to wrap this up now, the pasuk, Evan Masu Abonim Rosh Pina, the stone that the builders rejected. To me, the builders are, the people that run the schools, not you, Rabbi, God forbid, but the New York schools, Bonim, are, Bina. The builders are the builders organization. Actually, the school I went to growing up, they called the students products. They were like, this is the Torah Tamima product, and this is the Torah Vidas product. If you want one that's a little bit like this, you wouldn't send to Torah Tamima or Torah Vidas. You want a Chaim Berlin product. So it's like sort of, stamping out like the China version of manufacturing. I sort of appreciate more 3D manufacturing one by one, but these schools were more in the China version where let's just churn out 1,000 of them. So that's how it was. So these Bonim, these builders, rejected me. That's for sure. One of them actually thought I was retarded. The principal of no, I was not. And but the point is, I was looked at as just this, dumb rich kid, and they just tried to mold me into something. And these people, rejected me. But if you think, why is it that the rejected stone is the cornerstone? Why can't any stone? What's the chance that the rejected stone is the cornerstone? Why particularly that one? Why not it's a 1 in 1,000 chance that maybe it's the rejected stone, but maybe not. It's obvious that it's particularly the rejected one that is the cornerstone. And the reason for that to me is because the rejected stone is the stone that follows his own heart and follows his own drumbeat and is not told what to do, and is not and is not being stuck in a fenced off into a particular way of being or a particular way of doing, is sort of doing his own thing. And someone like that is the cornerstone of the new world, because you can't build with the old a new thing. You have to tear down the old to build a new thing. So to wrap it up, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was 12 years in the cave. How did he become so great? It was internal. He didn't learn anything from anybody else at that point. He learned from himself because he dug into himself. He buried himself in sand for 12 years. And through that, he meditated and went into himself, and he turned into something, great. And it's in all of us. We each have this inside of ourselves. And the last point is, about these rules. Someone asked me, I think it was Raymond, why am I so religious if I don't believe in rules? And the reality is that I'm the ultimate judger of rules. I'm as my mother would say, a maven on rules. And God's rules are the gold standard of rules. Imagine you're walking through the woods or in Mount Carmel, and they paint the rocks. You know where you're going. Are you going to say, I don't want to follow these rules, these onerous rules over here? No, you're thanking God that someone took the time to mark those rocks so you don't get lost and starve to death. Those are God's rules. God's rules are guideposts in a world where there's no fences, and you need to know what to do, giving you guidance. But man's rules are not like that. Imagine on Mount Carmel, instead of painting rocks, somebody paved it over with asphalt, the path, and then they built fences on both sides, and then they put barbed wire on it, and then they told you have to go this fast, and you got to go from here to here. You're going to want to walk on Mount Carmel? No, it's going to be hell at that point. That's how man creates rules around something that was supposed to be a beautiful path, and it turns into something else. So bringing it home with coronavirus, everything is changing right now. All the old rules and organizations and structures, they're all crumbling.
Don't bring that home.
Okay. So even shuls are closed. Everything that was organized is not happening right now. Davening is happening on the outside. Actually, a Chiloni friend of mine told me that he wants to go start davening because he saw it outside. It's not intimidating. He sees the spirit of it, and it's not getting lost by the structure of it. He would never walk into a shul because a shul has a president, and a shul has a budget, and a shul is going to make demands on him, and a shul is going to have politics, and he just doesn't want that. But a pure experience in a park, speaking to God, he's happy to have that. So, and this is how it was during the time of the Shoftim, and we're going back to this now. The Shoftim, the book ends. Everybody was master in his own house. They had judges basically to judge between people that are arguments, but there were no cops and there were no rules really. People followed their heart and followed God's laws, and it was a beautiful thing. It's hard to keep that. That's like, but a Messianic time is going to be like that. And so in my thinking, it's not an accident that the rejected stone is the cornerstone of this world. Because the rejected stone is the one that wants an authentic self, not rules based on other people's priorities or other people's agendas, even worse than priorities, based on your own authentic self. And so what I want to say about this is if we want to be a part of this, if you want to be a part of this, you should start meditating now, because start thinking what it is that you want from your existence, and in an authentic way, because with coronavirus, that's where the world is going. It's going towards a more authentic way of being, and the old structures and organizations are being brought down. So all I do is suggest you meditate and really start to, not that you're not, but really focus on bringing authenticity, into every aspect of your life. And that's it.
Now it's time for the Q&A.
Yeah, right.
Okay. You know that I think that it's worth a lengthy discussion, the relationship between like the great description, the great idea that you suggested of God's rules being like the paint that the Chevra Le'Haganat HaTeva paints on the path for people to go for a walk in nature and not get lost. It's really worth a lot of discussion, the balance between those two. And it's really a great parable. Thank you for that. I will be using that. And because you like Kabbalah, Shalom, so I will say that what is the Zohar called the 613 mitzvot? Instead of a tzivui, instead of a commandment, what does the Zohar call them?
Privilege. Actually, I don't remember.
Okay, so the Zohar calls them eitzot, like advice. Like God is telling you, follow my advice. It doesn't have to be, certainly we have to abide by it. But if you only think about it as by abiding by it, then you get into that mode that you described of a path with fences on either side and barbed wire. And if you think of it as advice, then it's also guiding you, it's giving you a direction, and it's also giving you motivation to follow God's advice. So that's a good way to put those two together, going along with the lines that you paved here. So thank you both for your story. And that was the short version. And I don't think we're going to take the Kehillah on the long journey, but anyone who wants to hear your longer story, we'll have to find the time to spend the day and hear the long story.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
You do this with other people too?
Yes.
I don't know the full email list.
We're going to check my message. Somebody has to say.
I'll tell her.
Let's see. We had Shuli describe her what is it called, Shuli?
Laughter yoga and medical clowning.
Laughter yoga and medical clowning. We've had
John Sumroy.
John Sumroy speak about his project of the MyFold. We've had
Stanley
speak about the projects in El Al that he's involved in, bringing back Israelis in the beginning of Corona.
There was another one, but I can't remember. We're going to have hopefully Jeremy's going to speak next week.
We're hoping to get Jeremy from GEMS to tell us about the GEMS project.
Wow, I'd like to, I'd like to hear that.
And anyone else who has a great story to tell, we'd love to hear from you.
And we'll be happy to hear of other ideas of people to tell interesting stories about their lives so that our whole community can get to know that story better.
And each other.
And each other.
Yeah.
I have a question for Shalom.
Yes.
How are you using your experience to raise your kids? I'm sure that your kids, you must have.
He ignores us.
He doesn't. So,
the way he does it is that we teach ourselves and he just works on his candles.
Oh, okay.
He just watches us and makes sure we don't kill ourselves. But
So far, good.
I'm still working. I told you I was a work in progress. You don't remember the beginning of this.
and why do you have 3 kids?
There are 2 words to answer that question the best.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
Yeah, I'm working on the kid thing.
Good for you. Okay.
You what?
Not yet on the outside. It's still.
I'm
it's
still thinking about raising my
filtering
kid.
through. Yeah, he's very bitter. He takes after
I don't
his
think
father.
I'm gonna raise you. Go raise
All right,
your
thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah.
Mommy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you guys for
Nice story.
Thank you.
Later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.